I think it was Apollo
Oh,
15 that had a particularly high concentration of religious people going up into space. You also talked just about some of the interesting, I mean, the reading of Genesis, right? When I believe it was the first walking on the moon. Could you sort of detail, like, what is it that you kept finding over and over again about religious people and space? Is there a religious
yeah.
activity here for space?
I mean, and it even goes back, like Newton was also extremely religious and religious in a really, really weird way. And so I think that basically Newton saw it was okay, God creates the universe, God creates people, he gives us really big brains. And the idea of giving us all really big brains is not just hoping that we won't commit the sin of using those brains to understand creation. No, that we're actually expected to understand creation and that it all exists, but also that God is not a hack. God is not lazy and or doesn't take shortcuts, doesn't do dumb stuff. That if you have theories that explain a lot with very little input, that those are actually a reflection of, and you can view this in a totally secular context. You could say like reality is this very complicated and elaborate result of a fairly simplistic set of rules. You have a small set of rules, you add a random seed, and you get the universe. And I think those views do kind of converge, where maybe from a more purely secular standpoint, you are talking about the elegance of some theory, and that your general bet is that if you have an elegant theory that appears to explain the data, and then you have a really complicated, kind of messy theory that does fit the data better, that your best guess is, maybe even from just an information theory standpoint, your best guess is that your clumsy kind of hacky theory is just overfitting on the data you have, and the new data you get will probably fit the more elegant one better. And that has been the right bet to make for pretty much all of scientific history. And so yeah, I think the question of why space in particular, like why are they focused on really big things that are really far away? Why is there not this huge religious dimension to designing chips? Although there is some of that too. There was a fun article in Wired a couple months ago that I think the headline was something like "I saw the face of God in the semiconductor factory," and it was just about how most of the objects that have ever been built by humans are transistors. That is most of, in terms of just a strict count of units, that is most of what humans have done for all of our history, is build lots of these really tiny things that you can use to rapidly execute logical operations without any moving parts. Um,
Well,
but space is just, it is like a good symbol of transcendence. And when you talk about like there are like the religions that are more monotheistic, they like I guess one way to think of it is like you can there are a lot of older religions that are very polytheistic, like the Greek and Roman kind of household god system, where you think that your ancestors are divine and that they continue to exist underground where you buried them, and their spirits are there and care about what's going on. So God is down that way. And then you can have like a God is like right in front of us. There is a Messiah walking around, and we can see that Messiah. But then if you have a more abstract monotheistic religion and you don't have very many prophets walking around on the earth today, you tend to look upward when you're looking for where is God, where do we go after we die, etc. So yeah, that is just generally the direction that religious people are more inclined to look.
but because I'm obsessed with the Apollo stuff that you were talking about in your book, like, for those who haven't read that chapter, can you just give like a 60-second rundown of all of the ways that like religion kept cropping up over and over again and seemed to be this huge motivator for the astronauts?
Yeah, so I think one of the really interesting ones was Werner von Braun, where he was the rocket scientist I alluded to. I believe he was not personally held responsible for slave labor used to make the rockets that were launched at London, but he was definitely helping design the rockets that were launched at London. And then after the war, he and a lot of his compatriots decided they were definitely going to get captured by somebody, and they really really preferred there to be the Americans. So swept up and moved to the United States, and then he ends up in what I think must have just been this incredibly psychologically complicated situation where he was born with these talents, and then he cultivated these talents as a rocketry hobbyist, and then he used these talents in defense of something just truly appalling and evil, and he's still around and people are expecting him to do something for the world. And I think just dealing with that psychologically, you have to you want to find some kind of belief system that puts that in context and tells you something about what to do next, and really tells you how to avoid making the same mistake that you made
Mm.
before. And so he became a very evangelical Christian, and or he became a Christian of a fairly evangelical mold, and did talk about humanity's destiny being to go to the stars. And I think taking taking something, there are a lot of stories within Catholicism, and I think stories of just people's personal experiences where they take some aspect of their personality that was a more a darker one, and they turn it around and make that part of the way that they express their positive pro-social religiosity. And actually, there are enough precedents of this. It goes back far enough that it happens in the Bible, where Saul slash Paul is a cop, and he's able to wield the authority of the state. And then after his conversion, he's still willing to do that. He's still willing to periodically pull out his I am a Roman citizen card at times that are very much to his advantage as someone who's evangelizing. So it's the traits don't actually go away. They just get transmuted into something that is pro-social. And I think if you are a believer, you don't think that God kind of gave you this personality as a prank or just to punish you. Like, you have to assume that of your traits, your traits have good and bad elements to them, but you are not going to totally change your personality if you change your religious outlook. You're going to express that personality in a very different way.
Hmm.
I
So I think
mean,
that's, for von Braun, like, you could say, like, the entire arc of von Braun's career is, he started out, shooting a rocket from this hill to that hill, and then shooting a rocket from Germany to London, and he realized that the right choice was actually to aim much, much higher.
a modern variant that I am increasingly seeing when we think about space and religion, or even more broadly, cutting edge technology and religion, is this sort of almost techno religion that seems to be emerging. I would say Elon Musk is probably an adherent to it. He's always talking about the simulation, and it's in a sort of joking way, but maybe not. And just the way he talks about our need to go into space and like spread human consciousness into the stars. It does have a spiritual wrapper to it. And certainly, what one thing that your book really brought home to me is just what's key to these bubbles is a shared narrative. And it made me realize that that is one of Elon Musk's key core skills. Is he is a shaper of grand narratives, whether it is we need to spread our consciousness to Mars, to the stars, starting with Mars, or we're facing an existential risk with climate change, so we need emissions free cars, but then also we're going to transform the entire transport system in a way that is going to be cool and fun. I mean, with Mars, there's that same dichotomy where like we need the backup planet in case something goes catastrophically wrong, but also there's this optimistic vision. And it also brought home to me like maybe this is why he bought X, because if you want to be purveying narratives that advance your vision of the future, that's a pretty good investment, whether it's a moneymaker or not. But I guess the concern that rises in my mind then is that, okay, we can have people out there spinning these really inspiring narratives and getting people to buy into them, but it's not necessarily married to the reality. It's not married to the reality of whether electric vehicles are going to be the thing that stops climate change, or whether the government needs to pour a bunch of money into developing the particular kind of technology that Elon Musk wants to see developed. What is the prudent way, do you think, to look at that situation, recognizing both the power of that to, to create some forward momentum and progress, but also the danger of just perpetuating something that is kind of a waste of time and money based on a false premise?
Yeah, I think, to the point about risk aversion, like, you should definitely go into any of these things accepting the possibility that you could be completely wrong and you could
Yeah.
be wasting your life. But also that if you didn't chase after these kinds of dreams, then you're pretty guaranteed to waste your life in some sense. So, it's just a question of, do you wanna do the high agency or low agency way of wasting it? Those are the worst case scenarios either way. Um,
Mhm.
I I do think, yeah, Musk is very good about putting together these narratives. Um, I I have this suspicion that one of the reasons that you do see this more religious element to these sometimes is that religion, whether or not any given religion is true, it has at least survived a lot of kind of a Darwinian selection process where it causes the people who believe in it to have kids, raise those kids in that faith, and not have trouble with adjacent groups. And that can take a lot of different forms, and it also has a lot of variability in terms of how do religions persist and to what extent do they thrive despite persecution by different groups. But it is true that like any religion that's been around for a long time has just been through a lot of things and has prevailed over those things. And so it probably has norms that are going to also be pretty durable and are going to survive. And so you always want to ask if you are rejecting some of those norms, like like you may be smart, but are you smarter than a few thousand years of history
Good.
collectively? And often the answer is no. Um, and there are often ideas that feel really new and novel, and then you read about some random historical period and realize that someone else had exactly the same thought 500 years ago, and they did their thing and everybody starved, or they did their thing and started a war with a neighboring group and got wiped out or whatever. So it is, yeah, you're kind of free riding on just pure evolution when you try to adhere to those norms, whether or not you're actually a believer.
Hey, that was a clip from Just Asking Questions. You can watch another one here or the full episode here. And please subscribe to our brand new channel to get us started off right and be notified when new episodes or clips go up. Thanks for watching.